We're going to go through the people who have applied, and out of them say these are the best who can sit for interviews. And that process needs all of us, so that we don't have people coming and going, replaced by others, and all of that. So it will be very helpful, members, so that we can focus on this work. I know you I don't doubt you that you will cooperate. But under difficult circumstances will allow that people do other things. I'm worried that EFF is not here. If now I can talk about where we come from, I'm worried about COPE is not here, because those are consistent parties in this committee. I'm also worried that PAC is not here. So if we can have that team from today until we finish the interviews, it will be very, very helpful. But what we are going to do today, we are going to start saying what will be the process. What documents are we going to use as this team when the time of interviews come, even guiding us during the selection process. So the office has prepared something that will say, these are the reference documents that we'll use as a guide. That is why we have people like content advisor in the committee. Those who were part of the ad hoc committee, you'll recall how the process was handled in terms of, if you like, the roadmap towards the entire assignment given to them. So we wanted to ready members on those issues. Even if it's not today, you go back and look at the documents. I was asking if members do have the MOI. Because that's one document that before the ad hoc committee was so underground, if I can put it that way. Very secret document. We never laid our eyes on that one until all those things were uncovered. That document, all of us do have the Broadcasting Act and all other documents. So those are the things that we are going to use as we prepare. Last time we were debating as to whether we need questions or we just allow members to have on the basis of these documents, to have their own approach when they interview. Remember, this will be live, and therefore it's very important for us to be very focused and be very knowledgeable about documents that are guiding us. Because if we appear not to be knowledgeable of these documents, then we are in problem. Having said that, members, I will welcome Yes. I don't want to call you by your party, but I wanted to know the name, but I know you're Van der Merwe, but I always like to call people by their names. Lizel? Yes. Welcome. Members, you know her. She's from IFP. Apologies. Honorable Van Dijk is not well. I was very worried when I saw her on the 8th. You know, the 8th, you know, people come from hospital to vote. I was very worried when I saw her with all those things from hospital. But she's not well until further notice. Mr. Madisha, he's attending to urgent matters. Maybe this one is not urgent. That's why I'm very skeptical for an apology like this to a meeting. We better state reasons, proper reasons, not to say urgent matters. This is a very urgent matter. The other apology that I see here is from the Deputy Minister, Mohammed Lala, is on study leave. Apart from those, there are no other apologies. Members must understand that the process will flow until 1 o'clock. We break for lunch, and then we come back at 2, depending on how far we go in terms of what we are going to do this morning. Members, those are the apologies. Any comment on them? Honorable Van der Merwe.
Chairperson, I just wanted to indicate that as an alternate to this committee, I understand that I'm not supposed to be part of the deliberations in terms of shortlisting, but I got a call from the Honourable Carter, who is the Chief Whip to the Honourable Madisha. So I'm standing in for him just for now, but I will give him the message that he was missed by the committee. And then unfortunately, I will have to depart at 1 o'clock because I'm going to the ethics committee. I was roped in at the last moment. So I just wanted to apologize that you've got my face instead of Honorable Madisha's face.
No stress. Honorable Pumzile van Dam.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to introduce my colleague, Gavin Davis, who will be replacing Veronica van Dijk while she's on sick leave.
Okay. I've already welcomed him. Welcome. Was there any other hand? Yes, ma'am.
Chair, I want to forward my apology. Now, because I won't go further after 1 o'clock because I'm not feeling well. I'm just forcing myself even to be here today. I'm just apologizing. I will not go ahead after 1 o'clock.
Any other hand? Okay. We're going to proceed. Whether we go beyond 1 o'clock or we break at 1, all what I want to say, if we covered the distance, members, we're not going back to that process that we have covered, whether a member is present or not. So please don't take us back. Because this process is about shortlisting, and you come after 2 and say, no, there is this other person. Know that trainee hamba mindlulile stage indlulile. We are not coming back to that. Can I now allow the content advisor just to take us through what he has prepared?
Honorable Chair, honorable members, thank you for the opportunity. This is the work of the background team that supports the office chair. It's going to be a short presentation, but we thought that perhaps just to ensure that members are in consensus in terms of the processes that should be followed. The first part really is just the intent, really, to say that it's just to assist the members in outlining the process for the appointment of the members, of course, taking into consideration the prescripts of the Broadcasting Act of number 4 of 1999. Firstly, perhaps, is to take members through the overview, to say that on 5th October, it was this committee that resolved to institute an inquiry into the fitness of the SABC Board to hold office in terms of Section 15A of the Broadcasting Act. And subsequent to that resolution, on 3rd November 2016, National Assembly established the ad hoc committee to look into the fitness of the board. On February 14th, the ad hoc committee, when it concluded, resolved that the SABC board must be dissolved and that an interim board be appointed by the National Assembly. And this resolution, of course, was adopted 7th March 2017. And on 14th March 2017, the committee deliberated on the names recommended that the National Assembly recommended names to the National Assembly for the appointment of an interim board as per the Act. And these were Mr. John Madison, Mr. Matata Tsedu, Mrs. Phoebe Porchiter Kubule, Mrs. Kanyisile Kweyama, and Mr. Krishnaidu. And then the committee proceeded then to advertise for the posts for the vacant SABC board members on 2nd June, and that advert closed on the 30th of June 2017, when we had received about 363 nominations in total, as the chair had said at first. And a summary of the abridged CVs was then distributed to the members, as the Honorable Chair said, on the 4th of August, this last Friday, and the hard copies were sent to members' boxes this Monday, which was yesterday. There are a couple of imperatives that we thought perhaps we should run through. Firstly is to say that the committee needs to adopt certain resolutions relating to the process. One is the shortlisting process, the second is the interviews, and the third is the deliberations. Of course, today we begin with the process of the shortlisting. Under the shortlisting process, the main issue really is for us would be to outline the prescriptions of the Broadcasting Act as the governing legislation. The second is for the committee to resolve as to how many candidates will be shortlisted from the list of 360 something odd. The third is to deliberate on whether the nominees list information is provided to the public, keeping in mind that the Broadcasting Act states that the names of the shortlisted candidates must be published. What we're talking about now is the entire full list of 360 something, because if members do recall, in the past we've had an instance where the list went out to the public, we don't know how, but it was the full list of the 368. Well, then I don't know how many people were there in the previous one, but I think there needs to be some agreement resolved by the committee to say whether this particular list that we're going to shortlist from will be made public or not, taking into consideration, of course, what the broadcasting states in relation to the shortlisted candidates. And then it will be imperative also for the members to broadly discuss the criterion for key skills needed for the board nomination process. And then I think we are due to do both first and final round of shortlisting today, if time permits, for the purpose. And then, of course, there needs to be the adoption of the progress report of the shortlisted candidates. During the interviews, it will be important that the members do some evaluation of the interview process in terms of post the interviews to say, is there anything that we can do better, seeing that we are still due to nominate members for the council as well as for the MDDA board. And of course, members will be expected to present and motivate on the nominations, on the recommendations that they have. And then there needs to be an adoption of the report recommending the candidates for appointment to serve in the SABC board. In terms of the resources that we really required, we thought that perhaps from the office of the chairperson that we would develop a schematic overview of areas of interest for member questions. So for instance, we would just broadly outline the areas with which the members would then choose to question candidates on. Of course, this is if the committee resolves so. The second is that the committee secretary will commence the security clearance process related to the shortlisted candidates, as well as the verification of candidates' qualifications, those that are shortlisted, that is. And the committee assistant will duly prepare travel logistics for the shortlisted candidates, members, and supporting staff during the interview process. Because we might be knocking off late, for instance, at 9 o'clock during the interviews. The last one was whether, well, maybe to say that the committee should resolve probably today whether do we need to involve the HR, Parliament HR, for the process of the interview, because as we know, they do a whole lot of interviews, and we'll probably come with a systematic approach to how we score candidates for the purpose. Needless to say that there's still a very big elephant in the room which we have not talked about, that is the Broadcasting Amendment Bill, which I think will actually have direct bearing to the new board, and therefore the committee will at some point need to expedite the resolve of that particular bill. As per the Section 13 of the Broadcasting Act number 4 of 1999, the 12 non-executive members of the board must be appointed by the President on the advice of National Assembly. The non-executive members of the board must be appointed in a manner that ensures participation by the public in a nomination process, which I think we've done that quite well. The transparency and openness, and I think this is part of the process of that transparency and openness. And lastly, that a short list of candidates for appointment is published, taking into account the objects and principles of the Act. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. Number 3 of Section 13 says that the President must then designate one of the members of the board, referred to in subsection 2, as the chairperson and another member as a deputy chairperson, both of whom must be non-executive members of the board. So that's a prerogative of the President. In terms of the board, when viewed collectively, the members should be persons who are suited to serve on the board by virtue of their qualifications, expertise, and experience in the field of broadcasting policy and technology broadcasting regulation, media law, business practice and finance, marketing, journalism, entertainment and education, social and labor issues. Secondly, must be persons who are committed to fairness, freedom of expression, the right of the public to be informed, as well as openness and accountability on the part of those holding public office. Furthermore, they must represent a broad cross-section of the population of the Republic. And lastly, must be the persons who are committed to the objects and principles as enunciated in the Charter of the Corporation. And I think these prescripts are actually in the Broadcasting Act, which I do believe the honorable members do have in their literature. It's Section 13. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
That's the end of the presentation. Can we, because we must take decisions on the process as proposed in the document, I will allow members to look at the document and point us to areas where they want to make proposals. So I would look at that and then take a resolution. Honorable Van Dam.
Thanks, Chair. I'm largely happy with what has been put together there. I would suggest we do go ahead with the shortlisting, but on the understanding that members still need to do a thorough review of CVs, and we need to do our own research. So we can propose names and then shortlist on that basis, but we will still do our own intensive research. I'd like to suggest that that shortlist be published on Parliament's website in line with the Broadcasting Act, but also just to make sure that we conduct this process in the open, and we must also give the public and civil society the opportunity to comment on those candidates. This was the process that was also followed with the public protector. Civil society organizations may have resources that we don't have, so they can also assist us in making sure that we have full research and we have full information about all the candidates. So all CVs must be published on the website, and we must give, for example, 5 working days for the public or civil society or anyone who's interested to give comments. And then I'm happy with the content advisor giving us guidelines about questions, but I would like to suggest that the process, we just be allowed to ask whatever question we want to ask and not be limited to a list or limited to specific, to the list that's provided by the content advisors. We must just be able to ask whatever question we deem suitable. Thanks, Chair.
I hope members are taking into, so that we agree or not agree. One, we cannot shortlist today, is very clear. Why? Because we don't have the CVs yet. So I think let's agree that we'll receive the CVs. I don't know where they are. I don't have them myself. We'll receive the CVs, go through them. It can take us nights, go through them. I think let's agree that we won't do justice if we just go into shortlisting today. Agreed? Okay, secondly, I think I hear the nod of approval in terms of receiving the CVs, going through them, and then we start shortlisting. We'll come with the dates, but it can't take long. 2, I think I hear Honorable Van Dam says on the proposal of broad guidelines for questions, not necessarily questions, just to give a broad guideline, and then within that guideline and even beyond, members can ask questions. I want to hear is that against Honorable Van Dam? I just want to work with you so that I know and it's recorded what we agree upon. We agree that we'll receive CVs and we'll start shortlisting when we have perused them. 2, we agree that we'll develop broad guidelines for members to look at, and their questions be within that, but even beyond. Agreed? Okay. Honorable Van der Merwe?
No, Chairperson, I think you've covered me. I just wanted to support the Honourable Van Dam in terms of the issue of questioning, because I think once there is a certain set of questions, I think it will disadvantage candidates who come later in the process. Since it will be live, if members stick to a sort of a certain set of questions, those who come at the beginning and those who come at the end will be disadvantaged because it will be live on TV. And also, different people have got different skill sets, and obviously those people will have to be questions. There'll be specific questions about a specific person. But I think I would like to agree that while there should be a broad indication of what should be asked, members should still be allowed to ask whatever questions they want to ask. Chairperson.
Honorable Dolasha, and then Honorable Tsedi.
Chairperson, thank you. I thought that was obvious, that there will be guide, but there will be time when the honorable members will have to ask specific question. I don't think there's anything against that. That should be the norm. But I wanted us to also, as we're agreeing to say we might not conclude today, in the further planning as we're moving forward, we should also brought to the attention of the office the fact that the parliament will arise at a particular time in September. So line up your program with that reality so that we can be able to say, if there will be need for us to sit the whole day, then the committee section can organize that so that we are in line insofar as the timing of rising of parliament. Otherwise, Chairperson, in agreement on the other issues. The issue of the HR, I agree with honorable members that says it should be as transparent as it was when we ran the process of the public protector, but with the ad hoc committee as well. If there are people that we can find who we might utilize without having to pay, especially the in-house people, let them be brought in. Because in different times, they will advise us as members, so that as we are moving on, we are quite clear of everything else. That will be my take, Chairperson. Thank you.
Agree on that one? On that proposal of the...
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you for welcoming me here today. I've just got 2 points I'd like to make. The first one is, I recall from when I previously served on this committee, the trouble we had when we discovered that one of the SABC board members had falsified their applications. And that was actually the chairperson, Ellen Shabalala. And we went through a lot of trauma as a committee, but eventually we had a hearing and eventually resigned. And I think that much is part of the public record. But obviously we want to avoid a repetition of that. And I'm very glad to see that the point was made in the presentation that each candidate who is shortlisted will be vetted. But I would just like to know, how are we going to make sure that no candidate slips through the cracks? Because we have seen candidates slip through the cracks before. So I'd just like to know, perhaps from the presenter and maybe the committee secretariat, what we are doing, how have we beefed up this process, and how has it been improved since previously? That's the first point I wanted to make. The second point I'd like to make is I think we need to agree on the number of candidates we're going to shortlist. That's quite important, I think, also from a technical perspective, because obviously the more candidates that we shortlist, the more time we'll need to schedule for the interviews. I think as a rule of thumb, it makes sense to me if we're going to be looking for 12 candidates, it probably makes sense to shortlist around 36 so that we take the best third, the best 33% of the candidates who we interview. But that's just a proposal. Thanks.
Honorable Tsedi?
Chair, I don't have problems with some of the issues that have been raised earlier on in terms of the process. But let me just start by appreciating the interest that people are showing around this particular process that we are about to embark on. 363 says people are developing interest in serving in the board in the interest of our people. Part of what some of the honorable members have indicated was the issue of the issue of publishing the names as required by the Broadcasting Act. There was a view which says we might need to publish all the names of people who have shown interest. But the Broadcasting Act is very clear. It talks about the shortlisted candidates. So I wanted to start with that one. I don't have a problem in us if we were to publish these names for a week. I think it's reasonable. For those who might be having some objections or some issues to raise around some of the names. Obviously, we can't avoid the vetting process honorable member has as well indicated some of the difficulties we have had in the past. But I had thought the content advisor was as well guide the committee in terms of the experience we have had in the past. If we are looking for 12 people to serve in the board in the past, what has been the situation, so that we are then able to deliberate about that proposal and take it from there. He missed that part, and my understanding is that he is just throwing it to the committee for a decision. But I thought he will then be able to guide, to say in the past, when we are looking for 10 people to serve in the board, who have been shortlisting 20 or be it 30 or whatever, so that we are able to take it from there. But personally, I don't have problems with some of the issues raised by the honorable members in terms of the process. But it's appreciable that for now, people are starting to develop interest in the board, which is something very good that we need to really appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you have noted because there was a proposal on how many names should be shortlisted and interviewed. Honorable said is also raising the same question. If you can clarify that one, Ma'am Tolash, Honorable Tolash.
And I'm fine. Let's get that history so that when we agree from an informed kind of a decision, taking into consideration the suggestion that has just been put by the honorable member. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I didn't want to be prescriptive to the members, but however, our past experience has been that for every post, we interview 3 people. So I think Honorable Member was correct to say it's the 33%, so to speak. But it's 3 people per post, so if we have 12, then it would be 36. If the members agree, that's the proposal.
Honorable, before you, ma'am.
Chair,
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Let us
Noting that kind of a history, but also what Honorable Tsedi spoke about earlier on, the interest that has been shown by the public in wanting to serve to the board. Let's take that history into consideration, but because of the number, if you can just put 40, because if you make that 3 per 48. It's 48. So you can take around 50, given the interest that has been displayed by the public. Then we move on. At least we'll be more. Because if you say we've got 340 people shown interest, let's also be saying we welcome that. We'll go out of our way to make sure that we get the best candidate out of that. Prescript are fine, but let's be a little bit considerable in making sure that people are given an opportunity, especially those who showed interest. But also, Chair, let's emphasize the fact that the sterling job that was done by the ad hoc committee as well as the interim board and the attitude of the committee in the process also did send a message that says we want to have the best board this time around. Other than that, we wouldn't have had this kind of number of people who showed interest if that was not the case. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kalako.
No, Chair, I'm sure we, all of us, we agree that we have 363 names, as it was said here. I agree with that proposal, that let's look around 36 names. But I wanted just to add that we actually, we agree here that each member must be allowed maybe to look at, come with 12 names, which you think they are best. And then we deliberate around that and we come up with the finality of that, of the list.
No, mine, Chair, I don't know whether I'm jumping the guns. I'm just looking at the list. We have this 300 and some odds list. I don't know why other names, why are still appearing here, because they don't even completed their CVs. We are making things bad for us. We didn't even supposed to put these names here. It's just my general concern, Chair. I think we must do some basics mathematics in this issue of these names.
Bulldozer?
Thanks, Chair. I would hope that the chairperson communicated my apology in the beginning of the meeting. So I'm sorry for being late. I want to align myself with the proposals that say we must not be overwhelmed by the quantities. From what I saw in the summary, a lot of it is just going to go out. We have to emphasize quality, and once we apply our strict minds, we're going to realize that we really don't have that much. So I'm comfortable with 36. The principle is that we have all these nominations. When we say 36, we're going to be interviewing 36 people. So that is what we must think about. If at the end of the 36 we're not satisfied, I want us to adopt a principle that we don't have to restart the process. If we get out of 36, we find that we're satisfied with 10 people, and then we want to go into the pool that we already have to get either women or whatever, some other skills that we think must constitute the board. I think in principle, I'm not sure the legal application there. But I remember that at some point we met that hurdle much later in the process. We had shortlisted, then people came in front of us and they were an absolute disaster. So there was a question whether we don't have to restart, can we just go to the short list that we already had and then get more names and then proceed with the interviews. So I think that's the principle we must do. It doesn't mean, and it addresses the concern about the quantity. It doesn't mean when you're not shortlisted, we have closed the process. It means at the end of the 36, if we are not satisfied, I propose we just go to the same pool and then we get people. Otherwise, 36 interviews, comrades, it's a lot. And I think we should stick to 3 per position and proceed in that manner. And I wanted to also propose finally that we have to now do strict dates so that we meet our deadline. We agree on a schedule. I've perused these documents. I'm not sure if there was a presentation of a schedule, but that's something that could help us, because we had agreed initially on a schedule. I think it's not proper anymore because we've missed about 2 weeks of this time. So we need a new schedule, commit ourselves to meeting those deadlines, and complete this process as quickly as possible without compromising quality.
Thank you very much. I think all of us, except the chief, didn't speak. Anything on what we have discussed and on the presentation itself? That's Honorable Kungbele.
No, I think, General, the approach is correct. And I support the view that says, in terms of schedule, let's reorganize in a manner that ensures certainty. Sometimes quality at face value is not always easy to see. There are people who might might have not completed whatever they have not completed. But it is worth but their track record is such that you cannot ignore interviewing them. I thought it is important to make that principle. All I'm saying is that processes of interview are not very simple. You don't look at people and then just simply conclude that you think gumgoba. So all I'm saying is that I agree with the process. Thank you, Chair.
No, on the issue of the schedule, Honorable Ndosi, Management Committee is meeting tomorrow, and then after that, we'll then bring back the schedule of interviews. It's honestly, last week we lost time, so we need to revise our program. But I want to appeal to members, if Parliament rises and we are not done, simply approach Parliament and then we continue. Because if we can focus on this thing, finish it, when the good interim board goes, and then the others come in, I think we must not fail. We must not fail on that one. There must be no gap. There must be no delay caused by us as the committee. So I think it's agreed that members will go for 36. Agreed? I think all these figures were closer, so I think 36 is agreed. Oh, yeah, okay. Honorable Sedi.
The schedule that we have been presented with talks about some of the candidates who have nominated themselves. Most of the candidates I see here on the status of nomination is complete. So if you distinguish those who have shortlisted themselves and not write complete. I had thought the content advisor will as well guide the committee as to whether members, candidates can nominate themselves or not. If they can't, then I had expected a situation where that self-nomination should not have been indicated there. Because once you put it that, it suggests that the Broadcasting Act does not allow people to nominate themselves. So it's one issue that you might have to clarify. Otherwise, there's no reason for you to put it there. It should just be complete, if that is what the Broadcasting Act allows candidates to. Secondly, there will obviously be candidates who, for one reason or the other, did not attach the necessary documentation as required by the advert. I had thought as well the Secretariat would have indicated those who, through the process, they've already removed themselves from the process by not attaching what was required as per the advert. I don't see it happening. Or does it suggest that everybody now qualifies to go to the next level? Thanks.
By the way, in our records today, there was no need to reflect incomplete. we can't come to this stage and reflect incomplete. Because this is the final stage. 30th of June, everything should have been done so that today there is no incomplete. This is what we are saying. Honorable Fanda, and then I'll come to you.
Saying is that we want to move with an assumption which says all people who are here, the 363, do qualify to go to the next stage. So I want him to clarify that particular aspect, if they've done the necessary verification to ensure that that was required as per the advert has been attended to by all the people that are submitting to the committee.
You see, I think this is what we must do. There must be no legal loophole. I think we must tighten up everything. Mr. Condon, advice?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I'm not working alone. It's a team at the back, so I'd like to allow the committee secretary to explain the concerns. Thank you. No,
If, yeah, because he's right. I mean, if you can say it,
I can, Chair.
please.
I think it's been the norm, Chair, that we do share the load, but it's quite straightforward that.
Let me allow you to proceed.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. In terms of the list of the nominated people, Chair, the routine has been that we don't necessarily shortlist ourselves. We check if the nominations come in, the person has submitted all the qualifications, has been nominated, and so forth. So what happens is then, usually what Mr. Ngoma would do, if a person is shortlisted and maybe there's a copy of ID, because it happens that sometimes people miss putting in a copy of a certified ID or some qualifications. Mr. Ngoma, if they are shortlisted, would then request that they send those as evidence in terms of whether they're shortlisted or not. Then we'll request that there's a document that's missing, please send to us for the purpose.
It's now your turn.
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, the self-nomination.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the self-nomination, the Act is quite not clear on that. It doesn't say that a person can be self-appointed or not self-appointed. And I think it's been the norm. It's been the norm that we've had people who self-appoint themselves in the past, and we've gone through the process like that.
Honorable Gongbel.
Thank you. Chair, I think the attitude we should adopt is that it's not only the applicants who want to be here. We are also proactively recruiting ourselves. In other words, we want the board members. We want people to apply. We are for good people. So all I'm trying to say is that, to me, it makes no material difference that you self-nominated or you are nominated. What must count is your background, your track record. Do you qualify to be interviewed by us? What kind of people do we want? Because sometimes you can be nominated here by somebody who was sitting in some lousy function. Maybe you happen to have a collaboration about Kaizer Chiefs and you agree, and then you nominate. So that difference is not material to me. That's the point I want to make. Yeah.
Yeah. No, members, if I want us to do everything according to law, there is a Broadcasting Act here, so that we don't have people challenging. if it's not clear there, because I think we must read that. Because we must be guided by Broadcasting Act. So singahambi ecaleni kuyo. Whilst that was there trying to check, did you get it? Okay, before you. So that's put this thing to rest.
Non-executive members of the board must be appointed in a manner ensuring participation by the public in a nomination process. And that's where it stops. And I think it's up to the onus is on the committee to then decide, do they take self-nominations or not? And like I said, the precedents before, we've never really had a problem with people nominating themselves into that. So it could be the resolve of the committee that they don't want self-nominations. But the Act is quite clear. It just says public in a nomination process. So nomination process could be yourself nominating yourself, or your sister nominating you, your brother or your cousin or your colleague. So
Can we then agree? Can we then agree on that interpretation? It can be one can be nominated by Honorable Ndlozi, or I can nominate myself. Great. Honorable Tolashe.
I'm being lobbied here. Because for me, it will be complete to say, as you are explaining, that even an individual is part of that public.
Yes.
Let the individual go through a process so that, as Honorable Member Gungubele said, if he meets what we would want to look at as the CV and process it, let's just look at that and don't put a lot of obstacle for ourselves, Chairperson. At least we will not be undermining the Act in that way. In fact, we'll be more flexible. Thanks, Chair.
Then we can come. I think we're done with this one. We agree. Honorable Van Dam and Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted to discuss the different points. So in terms of that section, it says that there must be transparency and openness. So we agreed that the names of the shortlisted candidates will be published on Parliament's website. Can we also agree that it's not just their names, but also their CVs, so that we give the public and civil society something to work with, not just names, but an actual CV?
I hope Nemamele. The proposal is not only names to be published, but also this. Bulkalako?
Howlers in the meeting. If you can take care of them. But Chair, I agree with it's correct, because just publishing names in the parliamentary website is not going to serve any purpose, because it won't, people won't know those people except just names. CVs must go with names.
Thank you very much. I think it's now a decision. Publish everything. Honorable Van der Merwe, I'll come to you, Honorable Ndlozi, after Van der Merwe.
In the recent interviews, for example, for the CGE, we did publish the CVs, but hopefully you'll publish it without the person's address and their cell phone number and their email address, because we need to protect their privacy. So, of course, it's important to have the name and the educational background, but not, removing the part about their personal information, like the ID number and the address, etc., which was the practice we did with the recent shortlisting for the Commission for Gender Equality.
That's a very good one. Thank you very much for that, Honorable Van der Merwe. Soon I expose the abandoned to abuse out there. Honorable Ndlozi?
Yeah. Yeah, I may have missed this again, Chair. You'll forgive me or pardon me. I want to propose that the published 36 names for public comment, we need to give at least some form of a framework to the schedule. So maybe we must agree on for how long will the public be. I don't know whether it was agreed prior to my arrival. If there is, that's fine. Can I be advised what is that time so I can express myself to it? And then I don't know also what is the decision regarding interviews being open, done in the open or private. That it's open. My proposal is therefore that whatever happens, we must spend only 2 days on 36 candidates with 12 hours a day. 40 minutes maximum on each candidate. We start at 9. Can I finish? We start at 9 in the morning. Thank you very much, Chairperson. We start at 9 in the morning, we finish at 10 in the evening with an hour, 30 minutes lunch. You can do other breaks, 15 minutes tea, 15 minutes tea. But we must try and do it if they are going to be open to the public as short a space as possible. It's a bit unfair to, I don't think we'll finish 36 names in one day if we're doing them like this. But if the first candidate that goes won't be the same as the last candidate, we can't control that, but that's the game of public office. The previous president, President Mandela, had a much more difficult job to go first than the ones that came after. The ones that came after understood the game better. We can't blame them. But my view is that if that's the case, 40 minutes, if we say 40 minutes per candidate as a maximum time, we can even be tough and say 30. But there's too many of us. I understand there'll be other political parties. So 40 minutes maximum on one candidate. Then that will give us 2 days of 12-hour work a day, starting at 9 in the morning, finishing at 10 in the evening, with 1 hour break. That can be distributed. That's my proposal. But can I be advised on the short list thing there? How many days have we given the public to comment?
A week. We said a week, 5 days.
5 working days.
Yeah.
Oh, agreed.
Honorable member. The concrete proposal is that of 40 minutes, because we are going to work out the program of the day. Not objecting on the 12 hours, but I think this thing, the basis of minutes, how many minutes, is quite important, so that we don't spend. Others, it can even be 20 minutes, but the maximum will be 40. I think members must agree on that. Are you on minutes?
Chair, on this point, I agree that we shouldn't do it over one day. I think that would be too short. But I don't agree that we'll be able to get through all 36 candidates in 2 days. Because in my view, we need at least an hour with each person, because we want to make sure we get the best board that we can possibly get. So we need to give every member of this committee an opportunity to ask questions and, if necessary, to cross-examine the people that we're interviewing. And I actually anticipate that some of the interviews might even go on for longer than 1 hour. I don't think this is something that we can rush. I think that the more time that we spend on each candidate, the better the board will be that comes out the other side. So I think we just need to be a little bit realistic about that. So I would propose that we do this over 4 days, that we spend 9 hours on each day and we budget 1 hour per candidate. That would be my proposal.
That's a counter proposal on 40 minutes, now an hour. Honorable Dolash.
I think let's agree to say sometimes we'll have candidates that will really, 20 minutes will be too much seated with the candidate in front of you. That's the reality. Of course, there will be a situation where you need something an hour. That should be the situation. However, let's agree to say between 40 and an hour. Let's make sure that, so that you are not embarrassed to let the candidate leave the house in 20 minutes because we have agreed to sit with the candidate for an hour. So let's not be fast on the time, but let's agree to say, let's take 3 days. Let's not take more than an hour, but let's allow people to leave if they cannot deliver what we'd expect them to, so that you are not fast and saying, "Nkosi yami, sawuhlala i-hour nalo muntu." Ngoba sekhona sivumelene. Or even if the person, you would want to hear more from the person because the 40 minutes is out, then the person must leave. So I want us to get into that kind of an understanding that is not strict and fast. But also, Chair, if you can agree to say the comment from the public must be processed so that it comes to us by the time we are seated in interviews, we are aware of what the public is saying about the individual candidates. It's quite important so that there are not things that are going to come up later. There can be very genuine issues coming from the public. There can be some distortions that might come from the public. So that information must come in quite early for the committee so that we are not being found wanting when you had to discuss about those. That will be my take, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you very much.
From the same caucus. Wait. No. I think let's say this rather. As I understand, because we've done this a couple of times before, and I must express here, Chairperson, like with your undivided attention, there is a big problem of the administrative back office of this committee. And we keep developing more administrative tasks. We need the back office to up its game. We have to rely on you, Chair, to rally these people, that they must work. So the processing of those comments must reach to us on time. If they come today and we're expected to start interviews tomorrow, it's unfair. And that must, of course, be integrated in the schedule. So, but normally, we develop some form of a prescript and allow ourselves additional or spontaneous or whatever questions. If we don't structure it, it becomes wild and too unpredictable. And as a result, it will not be efficient and effective. The idea that we're just going to have a leeway, we need to ask intelligent questions, useful questions that allow us to get information in order to make up our decisions. So we need to limit ourselves so that we do the proper job, not necessarily so that we don't do the proper job. The reason why we impose those limits is so that we actually come up with a qualitative interview and ask relevant questions that give us information to make up our minds. So I want to persuade the DA that maybe what we can do is, if the 2 days doesn't work, then we can extend. But an hour is too much. If we have a prescript, that's my view. If we have a prescript, members ask questions, and then we've got the follow-up questions of whatever question you can ask. Doesn't have to be related like we always do. 40 minutes is a lot. The person is given, this is not a public protector position. You know, it's board members. So you're given, we have your motivation letter, we have your CV, we have public comment. You get the first 5 minutes to speak and make whatever presentation you want. After that, we ask you questions. You know, or 5 minutes of introduction, that's what happens normally. 5 minutes of introduction, and then we interrogate you through questions. And at the end, people with still burning concerns move. I think 40 minutes is adequate. Obviously, if the process by the second day hasn't reached all those people, then we can extend. But I think it's not fair to have 4 days of interviews. Like if I'm a candidate in that process, I'll just be watching them. I know I'm coming on the 4th day. I'll just be watching and studying. That's too much time given to me to study. If we're having them in private, I would absolutely agree. But there's something unfair about extending it over if it is also happening in public. For some of the candidates that will come on the first 2 days or even on the first day. By the time I arrive on the 4th day, I'm used to you. I'm used to your style of questioning. I'm used to what are the possible things that will come from whatever corner. It's not fair for the people who started on the first day to those who come at the end. It's a bit, I think, that's my only predicament with extending it for too long. But I agree with the principle that drives you towards that direction. But there has to be fairness in as much as there has to be quality. And that quality depends on us making the best out of the process. That's what I have to say in relation to this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Kongubel, and then Honorable Van Dam, Van der Merwe.
Chair, I think the case for 40 minutes is being strongly made. I don't think we will be militarily rigid. If it happens with a particular candidate, it happens in interviews. When you do interviews, you can say 1 hour per candidate. Let me just use that. But there will be a candidate because of the quality and material interest that emerge in the interviews that allows you to go extra 5 or 10 minutes. But it's important to set a sensible time in terms of finishing things on time. Because even that public, I suspect by the 3rd day or 4th day, they will not be interested in one way. I remember when I was watching the Public Protect, when you went to 11, 12, I felt I'm no longer part of this. All I'm saying is that it should be allowed if there are material reasons why you go beyond 40 minutes. 2, also the issue of educational psychology, which I didn't know the member has, is actually well articulated. That's educational psychology that is articulated there. That it's critical that copycats and other things are managed in the process. Now, it therefore obligates members to ask sensible questions. You must know that that's not a chamber, we're not debating, we're interviewing people for specific jobs. That's why I support the issue of guidelines, which does not restrict people. So that by the time people go to these interviews, they've got a sense of quality, sensible, concise questions, or precise. So I'm saying the case for 40 minutes, I think, is being made. But it does not say at all cost it will be 40 minutes. Now, it needs a strict facilitation to make sure that we stick to the prescripts.
Honorable Van Dam.
Thanks, Chair. Every time Parliament appoints a really great interim board, things go well for a little while, and then the ball is dropped every single time with the permanent board. As this committee, we cannot drop the ball with the permanent board. We need to do this carefully. We need to make sure that we use as much time as we need. So I understand Honourable Ndlozi's point about 40 minutes. Let's say then between 40 minutes and an hour. In addition, I think it's also important how we ask those questions, because what we normally do is you go through the list, you go through the members of this committee, everyone asks one question, and then they're all thrown back at the the candidate being interviewed. Sometimes that person doesn't normally answer all those questions properly, so I would suggest that in order to make sure that each member interviews the candidate properly, we be allowed to cross-examine the candidates. So each member is given between 3 and 5 minutes to ask their questions, to ask follow-ups in one go. And in that way, we can properly get a feel of what each candidate is like and then make the right decision.
Honorable Van der Merwe.
Chairperson, I also think that, I've gone through this process before where we've appointed SABC boards, and I think to try and suggest that one can do it over 2 days, it's not feasible, because if you bring in the element of fairness, I also don't think interviewing somebody at 8 o'clock in the morning versus interviewing somebody at 10 o'clock at night who might have been sitting outside for hours is fair. Because firstly, at 8 o'clock in the morning, members are still happy and fresh, but by 10 o'clock, people are tired, and your questions might be, we've seen it before, you might be asking grumpy, people might be grumpy. It's late at night. You know, the element of fairness also comes in terms of whether you're interviewing somebody at 8 o'clock in the morning or whether that person appears before a portfolio committee at 10 o'clock at night. Those are considerations you have to take. So I think in terms of looking at days, definitely 3 or 4 days, not 2 days. And one shouldn't limit yourself to a time frame, because I remember last time with interviews, there was a candidate who appeared before us, and when we asked him about a TV license, he had told us, and in fact he appears in this list again, he told us that his dog ate his TV license. And that interview lasted 5 minutes. So you will obviously have people that you would want to spend more time with, which will take you over 45 minutes, and you'll have people that you'll eventually find, once they tell you that the dog ate the TV license, that you might just be spending 5 minutes with them. But definitely more towards 3 or 5 days than 2 days, because I think it's not fair. You know, a candidate appearing before you at 8 o'clock versus at 10 o'clock at night will not have the same quality of interview. So that is my argument. Thank you.
Honorable Doze. And
Look,
then I'll
Chair,
come this-
I want to promise members that that when we make these proposals, you know, we're trading off principles. So you have to help us and think of everything, not just one. In that way, I'm going to be able to be reached by the argument you make. If we want to be fresh when we make these interviews, if we want to spend quality time and all of that, we might have to trade the element of them being public. Because that is my fundamental predicament. Somebody needs to make an argument to that I'm sitting at home, I'm coming on the 4th day, and I watch everybody being interrogated. That gives me an advantage. That is the predicament created by public interviews for people applying for the same job. These are not elections. It's a meritocratic process nonetheless. People have to qualify on the basis of how good they are meritocratically. It's not like us as politicians who do everything in the public that if, the EFF has only 4 minutes in a speaking time in Parliament. And the NC has an hour something, I don't know the proper time. When we debate, the NC can have 4 speakers. You get it? But that's because they got more votes. Apparently that gives them more time. I don't know when is an argument more stronger because of its time as opposed to its logic, but that's the idea. But it's an advantage that they have. These are candidates, these are human beings. These are not, politicians like us. We want the best of the best to come and serve. We don't want to come and break people here, as it were. So I would argue that if you can persuade me that we can do this thing, like we start at 8, finish at 4, so that we are always fresh, that every candidate we have, we are always fresh at it, and we are able to also do that publicly for 4 days. My argument, I'm willing to buy it. I like that. I don't want you to think otherwise, but I think it's unfair for the rest of the other people who would have gone first in that sense. Finally, I like this thing of cross-examination. And I want to affirm or align myself to that at the end, after the because what the framework of the questions, we are saying that these are definitely questions that have to be asked. It doesn't matter how we feel, these people have to express themselves on this set of questions. But at the end, you must get an opportunity to sort of probe the person in a sense. So I think we don't call it that in that follow-up moment or that last period of follow-ups, it must work as a cross-examination for each member that would like to engage in that. So I'm fine with that proposal because I've seen it work wonders. I'm just very uncomfortable with interviews running for 4 days.
Except that I'll have to rule on this one. I'll have to rule because we can't discuss time for 30 minutes. Yes.
I'm on new issues.
No. I'm going to rule on this one.
Yeah, I want to respect your ruling, and now, no, I'm bringing new issues here.
Okay. Honorable Kalako?
Thank you, Chair. You are ruling on all the proposals.
I think
there
we've
are some-
agreed on other proposals.
Yeah, no. We have agreed the earlier one, but
Yeah.
there's a very important new proposal now of cross-examination and minutes per member, which I want that to be incorporated. It's very important.
Okay.
Because instead of I'm given a chance to ask a candidate, after that is Kungubele, is close. By the time he or she answers, she have forgotten that. So when it's my turn, I must be given that 3 minutes follow up or cross-examine, and then I'm called per member, so that I don't come back now with other.
Can we, let's decide on this one. Can we let a member ask questions and then follow up at the same time? I think that's what the proposal says, which is cross-examining. I think we agree on that one.
Can it be clarified, Chair? Let me explain this. If you say a member is given opportunity to ask question, at what time is that follow-up taking place? Because are you saying if you are given 5 minutes to ask questions, is it within that 5 minutes? Must just be realistic in the manner we are handling it. Yeah, we must know exactly what we're talking about, because it also depends on the pace of the one who will be responding and all those kind of things. So I think these are issues that must be tightened up, because there are follow-ups, by the way, in a session like this that can be clarified by the one who is facilitating. Let me give you an example. Somebody give a senseless answer. Sometimes it doesn't have to be the member who asks the question who needs clarification of that. The one who facilitates can assist. So it doesn't just depend on the member to clear issues. All I'm saying is that, let's be clarified. When you say follow up, are you saying I'm going to ask a question and an interviewer will respond and then I'll do? Let's explain the logistics of that so that we must agree on something that is doable.
Honorable Kungbele, my understanding, because we are going to give members minutes, it's not going to be an open-ended thing for you to ask questions. You'll do your follow-up within your questions, your question minutes. Okay? And that will happen immediately. Honorable Tsedi, and then I'll come to you.
No, on the 1 hour 40 minutes issue, I'll respect your ruling. But I had thought, Honorable Njosi has a point. I had thought earlier a minimum of a minute and a maximum of 40 was now appearing to be more popular. In that it was suggesting that surely 1 hour is too much per candidate. I thought that is what we were saying earlier. There are those who have motivated along a principle of a maximum of 40 minutes. And the honorable member says there might be instances where a candidate might even spend 5 minutes with you. So all I'm saying is that if a candidate has a lot of issues to tell us, at least that candidate must not go beyond 40 minutes. It was now appearing to be more popular as we're deliberating. But two more issues, Honorable Chair, that we need to look at here. There are two categories of candidates according to this schedule. One category is a category of candidates who have submitted CVs. No self-nomination, and these candidates were not nominated at all, according to this schedule. Yeah, you see, no nomination. My understanding is that that person was not nominated and did not nominate himself or herself. We need to take a decision on that one.
No, we have
So my understanding is that that person submitted a CV because it says no nomination. It means there was no nomination from the candidate himself or herself, and this person was as well not nominated by any other person. So we must take a decision as to whether we accept this as a candidate or not. What do we say? Because this is what it's saying. I don't want to start talking about names or numbers, but there are candidates who are said to have not been nominated or not even nominated.
Can I do this?
So I want him to clarify that.
Can
particular
I do this, Honorable Seti?
Because I'm raising this thing.
Honorable
Comrade Chair.
Seti,
Okay.
the fact that someone submitted a CV, nominated herself or himself.
Yeah, I'm raising this thing, Comrade Chair, because then this schedule is as well creating problems for us. Then this thing should not arise. Why would you want to say no nomination or no acceptance letter or whatever? Why would you want to indicate it? Because if a person has submitted a CV and you have correctly indicated a nomination on itself, then the schedule must not even tell us that this person submitted a CV without any nomination form or what.
Okay. Where there is no, you're saying it reflects what? No nomination. What? Where it says that, we agreed that that person nominated himself. Forget about what is reflected here, because we've taken a decision already that whether you have been nominated or you nominated yourself, it's accepted.
Honorable Chair, maybe just my last follow-up on this one. You know why I'm insisting on this particular issue? You are distinguishing this category from the other category of people who have nominated themselves. In some, you are saying self-nomination. That one is another category. So that's my problem. So I'm saying it needs to be clarified from the Secretariat, whether it's another category or whether it's the same as those who have nominated themselves. Why are you distinguishing these ones from the self-nomination category? That's my problem.
Thanks, Chair. We are currently engaged in what is called splitting hairs. We are obsessing about minor details. I am calling it splitting hairs. I don't think the issue, Honorable Sedi, we've dealt with it, you've ruled on it. If someone has not submitted a good enough CV, if they shortlist, we'll deal with it in the interview. So I don't think we must worry too much about tiny little details. I just wanted to talk about the points that Honorable Ndlozi raised earlier about him talking about fairness and saying the person who comes on day one will be, the person that comes on day one, the person who comes on day 4, there might be some disadvantage. I think all these people, in terms of the Broadcasting Act, it wants a broad set of skills. So it's broadcasting, media law, finance. So each candidate will come with a different skill set. So if day 1, it's someone with media law, we ask them things around media law. If it's day 4 and it's someone with finance, we'll ask them different sets of questions. So that is why I also think we shouldn't limit ourselves to specific prescripted questions. It should be just, you know, ask as the committee asking our questions to each candidate based on their specific skill set. So I don't think they'll be disadvantaged. I don't think people can prejudge what questions we're going to ask, because also in addition to us asking them about the Broadcasting Act, we'll also have research from civil society. We'll have our own in-depth research. So we might have stuff that's actually not in their CVs to ask them about. We might find out things about, you know, people who claim to have qualifications, and then we find out through our research that they don't. This is a question that we ask them during the interview session. So I'd say, let's take as much time as we need. Let's not limit ourselves to questions. And I don't think people will be disadvantaged because people are coming with different skills. And I hope I've convinced you.
You see me going up and down here. I was saying there must be calculation. Looking at 40 minutes on a 10-hour working day, and then looking at 1 hour on a 10-hour working day. Because this is where I want to roll. If you take an hour, you will do, cut this thing. You will do 10 candidates a day. If you take 1 hour, you will take 10 candidates a day. Then it means you have 3 days plus, 3.5 days. And then if you take 40 minutes, you will have 15 candidates a day. And it gives you 2.5 days, which is like 3 days. Just for the satisfaction of everybody, let's go to 45 minutes maximum, and it will give us 3 days, 3 solid days. Can we settle on that one? And we talk 45 days, and the facility 45 minutes, and we talk 45 minutes. And remember that Honorable Kungbela was saying the facilitator must also play a role in managing time. Because the facilitator can go beyond 45 minutes if she so wishes, because of the environment. Let's take these 3 days, comrades. Let's take these 3 days. Let's take these 3 days and look at 45 minutes maximum, depending on the facilitator. Agreed? Yeah, we talk 3 days. Is there any other outstanding decision on your issues, comrades? Do we still want to engage further?
Yeah, I wanted to engage the concerns of Honorable Tsedi. Those concerns are very important. What are the categories here?
Chair, I just asked a question earlier about the vetting process and the qualifications to see how we've beefed up our system to make sure that no qualifications fraudsters slip through the cracks.
Well, once we finalize the shortlisting, immediately those people go for vetting. You are raising the issue of qualifications as per your experience. It's a direct question, that one. Temengosi?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, as soon as the committee has shortlisted the 36 candidates, each candidate will be sent a qualification verification form, which the candidate must fill in, consenting to the committee conducting qualifications check, must fill it in, listing all the qualification that he or she has, which is apart from what he or she has listed on the CV. This time it will be consenting that we verify those qualifications. So HR has indicated that as soon as we have shortlisted, those forms will be sent to candidates, fill it in, return to Parliament, and will be sent to HR for qualification verification of all candidates. Thank you, Chair.
Because we can't call people without checking their qualifications, but also without being vetted. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Chair, just to clarify, will the vetting and the qualifications check be done by an independent body like SACWA or an equivalent body? Because I don't think that was done in the past, and that's where the problem came in.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, our human resources at Parliament has company contracted to it to assist in these instances. So currently, Parliament uses MEI, a company called MEI, to do the qualification verifications. Thank you, Chairperson.
Where are these files? CVs. Can we get, before they leave, they must have their files? The CV? Yes. They arrived yesterday afternoon. Okay. Do we have the CVs, members? Yes. Are they ready? Okay. All right. That is answered. Ubanonga kaifumani ilant because I didn't go to the office. If you don't have your CVs, just send the secretary to go collect. It's a box. It's 2 boxes, in fact. Okay. I think we're done with the process of how we are going to start with the nominations. With shortlisting. Tell us what are we doing on Friday? Because we are working on Friday, according to our program. Don't we have anything in our old program? I will show you what I have, because we have an old program that was adopted. What's going on? Is it only today? I know you can be quick to say it was only today. Temengosi, can you? Oh, here is the third. Friday is what? Friday is the Honorable Tolashe and Honorable Ndoz will come. I'll come to the revolution.
I know for a fact that Chairperson, the FPP is quite urgent, but we did not receive that program. If you can be told how best can we make sure that we do get some time to deal with FPP beyond Friday, is it for FPB? If we have an opportunity to deal with it beyond Friday.
All I know, members, just that I don't know if members didn't receive this program. Honorable Ndos.
No, I recall this program. It is what I was referring to earlier when I said the last 2 weeks, because we didn't do any work, has affected the program as we planned it. Now, again, I want to come to this point. We agreed a long time ago that this is what we are going to do. We only received the CVs of the SABC process. Even if there was no motion of no confidence, we would have never been able to stick to our program, because we didn't receive documentation on time to do thorough work. You want us to shortlist on Friday, we still don't have the documents for Friday today. So it's not, we are not available or anything. Before we come there, the back office of this committee needs to pick up its socks on a very serious note, Chairperson. They need to push work, particularly because we agreed on the program of action a long time ago. So I don't know that you want us to sit for any shortlisting of any board by Friday, but we don't have content. We're going to come here and do that thing of process, what, and there's no shortlist that happen. Why? The administration is sleeping. It's wrong. Even we have been sabotaged or we have been failed even on our oversight. I think one will have to start writing directly to the speaker if this situation is not improving. On a very serious note, Chair.
Okay. I want to check members, because I do have a program here. I understand what we're talking about. There is a program that I have. I'm not sure if members did receive the program. Honorable Van Dam?
Sorry, Chair, even that program, remember when that program was put before us, we had extensive discussions about how we're going to change it. We didn't receive an amended program after those deliberations. Do you remember we had those extensive deliberations? So I'm not even sure which program we're talking about, because we asked for that program to be amended and we agreed on certain things and we didn't receive an amended program. So if you're talking about a program, I'm not even sure which one you're talking about. So what I would say is that the Secretariat must draw up the program, taking into consideration the suggestions we made, and then on Tuesday or on Friday or whenever, table before us that new program, and then we can talk. Right now, I don't even know which program you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the third quarter program, which reflects all these things that were the dates of the interviews and all of that. But it's fine, members, if taking the point of the back office of the support, which has been raised a long time ago, if the program was not circulated after amendments, tomorrow we'll have to do that as MENCO and then circulate. But what I want to check, let's forget about the CASA shortlisting, because we don't have CVs. But there is FPB that we discussed at some stage. FPB amendment bill, not CVs. Because it says deliberations on the films and publication amendment bill. That's the program that we discussed last time, and it was to be amended. I'm checking, because we have scheduled Fridays, can we look at the amended program on Friday as well as the amendment bill? Because Parliament is ready to present that to us. I just want the commitment. If we are not, then we must say so. Honorable Van Dam?
See, that's why I keep raising the issue about the amendments we discussed to the program. I remember that there was a specific amendment to the program about the FPP amendment bill. I requested that because there have been so many changes, we want to see what the final version of, no, not the final version, but at least the amended version of the bill looks like on paper. Because we have just had different amendments spoken about different sections, but we haven't seen the actual amendment in its entirety. So I requested that be given to us in advance. We've been given time to go and sit down with our legal advisors to look at that bill in its entirety. So if I only get that bill tomorrow, it's Wednesday, and then in 2 days I must give a considered opinion on that. That's not enough time for me. So that is why I say if we meet on Friday, it's just to discuss the amended program. We can't discuss the FPB amendment bill. We need to be given that well in advance, needs to be given time to consider it carefully, and then give our inputs.
Dollars?
Chair, I would agree with Honorable Van Dam. However, if the office can be given an opportunity whether they did send the program to the members or not, as you are taking into consideration on all the complaints that the members are putting, if the secretary can just tell the committee whether, in fact, he did do his job, so that when you go back to go and resolve issues, you go there with an informed kind of a decision. Because we are making arrangement now out of frustration. Because Friday, some of us, we committed because we got our programs from our offices yesterday. And we had an impression that there was nothing that is to take place on Friday. And now we get to realize, in fact, there is something. Sometimes we might have missed reading his emails. If he can just tell us that whether he did, in fact, communicate this, so that chairperson, as we are going back to go and resolve issues between yourself and the staff, we must be sure of what then happened. And you get to understand the frustrations that is putting this committee by not doing his job. Thank you.
Chair?
Oh, okay.
You see, Chairperson, what I've been avoiding to say is that in the end, this is your job. We may want to, the secretary is not a member of parliament. I mean, if there was an opportunity to put a motion of no confidence on him, I could have done it a long time ago. We don't have to even vote secretly, because the experiences of the administration of the committee are really painful. We appear seriously disorganized, and we're going to make mistakes because we are not taken care of. But the buck stops with you. That's why it's not all of us who are the chairperson of the committee. So it's either you rain heavy on them, or we must just be honest that it reflects on your own competence. So you must think twice. I mean, you should check properly before you come to the meeting with these people who are working for us. If everything is on scratch, resolutions that are taken have been communicated, all those things. Because we're having this conversation every time we meet, Chairperson. So I want to introduce that because I don't want to shock you next time I'm raising this question, because I will no longer be speaking to the Secretariat. It is you. You are, the buck must stop with you. You are literally the person that must take care of all that business ultimately, although they are supposed to support you in that regard. Okay.
No, thank you very much, members. I take the, again, because it's not for the first time. I take the criticism as constructive. I don't think it's destructive, because that's not the tradition of our organization to destroy a person. I take it as a constructive one, and maybe we'll have to check up, because it's not for the first time, really, and it's not that I like it. I don't like it myself. But sometimes you can talk, you can't beat up people. You can only talk, you can't fire people there, because there is a different, except that these matters can be raised with the speaker and all of that. If ungamile, because you do things at some stage, and then you do them differently. So they are here. we'll have to see what to do. And thanks for raising it. Okay, I think it's clear that we cannot do anything on Friday. We can't come for the amended program. We'll have to reschedule, or we'll have to stick to our Tuesday and the other Friday. It's not a holiday. On Friday, we'll do other work, but thank you very much, members. I think let us apologize. You know, all CVs or nominations came on the 30th. And then there was never anything accepted after the 30th of June. And from the 1st of June, maybe the 5th of June, of July, this work should have started. It's exactly what I was raising at the management committee. That what have we been doing from the, let's say the 5th of July until the time I was told CVs are not ready. Even if it's a nightmare administratively, but we had as the office the whole month. It talks to what Honorable Doze is saying, the whole month. And by the time we met in Menco the other week, was it last week? A week after, the week before last, there was no ready CV, copied and everything else. And unfortunately, you get what you are reported to. You just get the report and talk and talk. The whip is there. He was in the meeting. So it's at a level where you will get these results all the time. Results of documents like that not available, work not done. And as I say, we'll have to do something tomorrow when we meet in the MENCO. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't here when they did the presentation. I don't know what is going to be the significance of this. I hope you corrected that we received the summarized things on the 4th of August. We didn't. I mean, I have the email. We received them last week Friday.
It's in which document, that one?
This one that was presented. It says summary of the abridged CVs of nominated candidates was distributed to members electronically on the Friday, 4 August 2017. It means I went to the motion of no confidence with the CVs. I didn't.
So the document
It was on the 11th of August
not the
at
4th.
11:57 a.m.
Not the 4th.
Not the
The
4th.
document is wrong.
Yeah,
It's
so
11.
they must correct it so that we have a proper minuted.
I think we are closing this matter of administration. Can we agree, Chair, that if we take ourselves serious, is the last time we discuss administrative problem? I think this message must be sent because there are things I'm sensitive to. When this matter is being discussed, I don't like the gestures that I'm reading from our administrators. And I think they must be very careful when serious matters discuss about their performance. Don't send a gesture that demonstrates good siyadlala. I'm saying, can we agree it's time? Because these people are paid for doing this job. It's not a charity game. As Baceli, we're not requesting them. They are being paid for being here. So they must not use these lights and water for no purpose. And I'm saying, let's not come back and discuss. I mean, the 11th and 4th. Can you imagine that? What kind of a mistake is that? So I'm saying, let's agree, Chair, we don't come back and discuss this thing again.
We'll never come back to discuss it, I assure you. We won't do that. I think what needs to be done now is action. When things are not done, we'll have to act. I can't listen to this again because it doesn't sit well to me as the chair. Because, I mean, Honorable Dose is right. I mean, it's not the official, it's me, if things are not moving. And I think now things must be done. Thank you very much, members. Nothing on Friday. Do other things. We meet on Tuesday. You have your CVs, work on them, come back ready. We'll send, let's do this before you leave. Can we, Honorable Kungbela, can we agree that once we are done with the program of interviews, fit in those decisions that you have made, we'll send them to you. When we are done with the tweaking of the program, correcting it and redoing it, we'll send it, because we won't come back on Friday to look at it and endorse it. We'll send it, make your comments, and then we'll take it as done. Thank you. Meeting's adjourned. Oh, there is lunch outside, 11:30. Is it lunch or tea? There is tea outside, lunch at 1. Oh, they are not. Lunch at 1 at Mark's building if you want to eat.